Welcome to another episode of Off the Post. Today we're doing another opinion piece. We got some breaking news this morning, some big old breaking news. So it's about the U.S. Women's National Team, sorry. 5 of their players have officially signed their names to a federal complaint against the U.S. Soccer Federation about wage discrimination. This is a huge deal. Carly Lloyd, Becky Sauerbrunn, the 2 co-captains of the team, Hope Solo, Megan Rapinoe, and Alex Morgan. In interviews, these players have said that the rest of the team is united besides them. They voted to decide who the 5 players would be who actually signed their names to this document. In my view, they picked the 5 best players that they could have possibly picked. Hope Solo, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe are huge faces in soccer, let alone women's soccer. And Lloyd and Brune are obviously the co-captains, but you have Carly Lloyd, who scored a hat trick in the World Cup final last year, and Becky Sauerbrunn, who is quite possibly the best defender in the entire world. So they picked 5 very good high-profile players. And so let's go straight into the wage gap numbers, just to put into perspective the difference between the women's team and the men's team in the way that U.S. Soccer Federation compensates these players. Let me pull up my little chart here. This is from the Sports Illustrated article that I actually linked at the bottom of this video. Definitely go look at that. It's a lot of stuff. I'm only going to cover a little bit of it because I don't have that much time, but you should definitely take a look, really read the article, watch the interview with Grant Wall. It's a great interview. So let's just put this into perspective. We have the U.S. Women's National Team have this CBA that was set up. There's actually another lawsuit that's going on. I talked about it a little bit in another opinion piece with Red Cap a couple months ago when it first was announced. But the CBA, U.S. Women's National Team are talking about how it should not stand anymore. They want a new, whatever you call it, document or whatever. And U.S. Soccer wants this current CBA to continue. Now, the numbers that I'm going to give you are the numbers based on this CBA. And for the U.S. Women's or the U.S. Men's National Team, this is their document that lasts between 2015 and 2018. That's what the players and the federation have agreed on. For the women's national team, this is the CBA that they're trying to strike down in this other lawsuit. So here's what we've got. For friendlies, this is per player versus teams that are not in FIFA's top 25, and that's excluding Mexico. For the men's national team, they get $9,375 for a win, $6,250 for a tie, and $5,000 for a loss. For the women's national team, they get $1,350 for a win. Nothing for a tie, nothing for a loss. Now, you go down and you have friendlies per player versus teams that are ranked 11 through 25. That's excluding Mexico. For the men's national team, you get $12,500 for a win, $6,250 for a tie again, and again, $5,000 for a loss. For the women's national team, you get $1,350 for a win, nothing for a tie, nothing for a loss. Now, you go even further, you do the friendlies that are per player, and that's versus teams that are ranked 1 through 10 and Mexico. The men, if they win that game, get $17,625 for a win, $8,125 for a tie, and again, $5,000 for a loss. The women's national team, if they win this game against a top 10 team in Mexico, they get, you guessed it, $1,350 for a win, nothing for a tie, nothing for a loss. So across the board, men get $5,000 if they lose. Depending, it doesn't even matter if this team is, well, let's say Guatemala, who they lost to in a big tournament a couple of days ago, 2-0, for the first time in like years and years and years. They still got $5,000 of a bonus for losing per player. The women get nothing for losing, nothing for tying. Doesn't matter if they're playing against Germany, who's one of the top teams in the world. Doesn't matter if they're playing against Haiti, who's one of the bottom teams in the world. They only get $1,350 for a win across the board based on the CBA that the U.S. women's national team is trying to strike out. Okay, World Cup roster bonus, $15,000 per player for the World Cup qualifying match, okay? They get a $15,000 per player World Cup roster bonus. The men's national team per player, they got $68,000, $68,750. Okay, this is huge. This is massive. The pay gap is just disgustingly massive if you take away like all of the smaller details, okay? So closing down that chart, there are a lot of people who are poo-pooing, if you will, this action by the U.S. women's national team, claiming that the women's team doesn't bring in as much revenue as the men's team, and that's why the men's team makes more than the women's team. But that is not the case anymore. For years now, the women's team has been breaking records with national TV viewership. The Women's World Cup, they brought in, for the final, they brought in more of a TV audience than the NBA final of that same year. So these NBA players who make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, less people watched their final than watched the World Cup final for the Women's World Cup, okay? This is huge. And yet, people are still arguing that the men bring in more viewership and more revenue than the women's team. Let's also look at this chart that the USSF has published themselves, okay? Probably regretting it a little bit now, but they published this themselves. And they projected that in the fiscal year of 2017, the women's national team is going to make $8 million more than the men's national team, okay? Now, they're actually putting this information out themselves and yet are totally fine paying the women's team 4 times less money than they're paying the men's national team, who apparently in the fiscal year of 2017, they project are going to bring in less revenue than the women's team. What? Okay, but then, okay, that aside, okay, you have the U.S. Soccer Federation, right? This is the USSF house, if you will, okay? You have the men's team and the women's team in this USSF house, right? Okay, you have this team that's getting 4 times as much as this team. You have 2 teams who are basically pushing the financial success of U.S. Soccer Federation forward. 2 teams who are together creating revenue for this federation. And yet you have one team that makes 4 times as much as this team. If you really grind it down, the only reason that these 2 teams are making different amounts of money is that this team is a women's team. That is the only reason. You can't use the excuse anymore that the women's team doesn't bring in as much revenue, because it's simply not true. If anything, the women's national team viewership has been steadily climbing, if not significantly climbing, since World Cup last year. And it's only going to explode even more through the roof once the Olympics happen. So you can't make that argument anymore. It's a completely misogynistic argument. Now, take out the fact that the women's team wins over and over and over and over again, and that the men's team is, if anything, regressing, let's be real, The fact that the women win more is of little consequence here, except insofar as them winning, bringing in more fan base, right? A team that wins a lot of people want to support them. Look at the Golden State Warriors in the NBA, right? All of a sudden, everybody's a Warriors fan. So, I mean, that aside, the fact that they win all the time aside, you have people wanting to buy women's soccer jerseys because these are extremely, extremely, extremely strong, passionate, wonderful role models for women, men, young, old. Doesn't matter where you're from in the country, they have fans that are even outside of this country, right? So this is about these women and their worth as employees to USSF, right? Their fan base is powerful, ever growing. People are buying women's player jerseys left and right. It doesn't matter who they are, right? People want to give money to this team. This is a very, very, very worthy team who is bringing in a lot of money for US soccer. And yet they're making 4 times less than the men's side, which arguably is not making as much revenue as they used to. All of my friends who follow soccer, who are male, they can list 3 or 4 or 5 different women's players that they would love to have their names on the back of their jersey, right? And when I ask them which male players they might want on the back of their jersey, they can't really come up with one. That's the difference of revenue right now. That's the difference of worth in each team, right? If you go by the product and the quality of the product, if anything, the women's national team should be getting paid more than the men's national team, and yet they get paid 4 times less. This is just about equal pay between 2 teams who are putting in as much of a product as each other in this one federation, right? It's ridiculous. Let's see. Right, okay, so USSF has also released a statement, and Becky Sauerbrunn herself just tore it apart, but basically they said nothing about the disparity between the women's national team and the men's national team. They said nothing about it. It was just a bunch of points about, look at all of this cool stuff that we've done for women's soccer. We did this and this and that and that and this and that, and we're doing this, and in the future we're gonna do this, and we're totally like the biggest supporters of women's soccer. But they have not even slightly addressed the actual problem, which is the wage gap between the men's team and the women's team. They did not say anything. This is not what we're even talking about. We're not asking you to list all of the ways that you've supported women's soccer. We're asking you to talk about the fact that you refuse to pay the women the same amount as the men. Boom. You have 2 teams who are putting out the same product, and that's soccer. Okay, both of these teams should be getting the same wage, the same treatment. They're both putting out the same product, soccer. Okay, even if you did decide to base this off of the quality of the product, like I said before, the argument would be raising the women's national team wage over the men's national team wage because they win more and they have a growing fan base, whereas the men's national team, arguably, a lot of people have decided that they're kind of tired of watching the men's national team. So either way you look at it, these women should be getting paid way more than they're getting paid, all right? And you boil down every single argument against the women's national team making the same as the men's national team. You boil it down to its basest form, and you get they're women. That's what all of this boils down to. They're women. And that, my friends, is wage discrimination. The only reason that they get less than the men is because they're women. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is an opinion piece, so I can't say how any of my other panelists feel about this, but I'm going to go on record and say that if this team decides to strike and they end up not playing in the Olympics, I will definitely support that decision 100%. That is all the percents, okay? All the percents. I will support them 100% because this is a bigger issue than just a trophy, than a tournament payout, which would be less than the men's payout for just being in the tournament. Let's be real. It's about more than that. This is about a group of women who are professional athletes demanding to be treated equally. They want equal pay, they want equal treatment, and they deserve that. I don't care about the market, I don't care about the revenue. These are two teams who should be making the same amount of money. And it's disgusting that they don't make the same amount of money, but the actual disparity is disgusting. It's awful. So, you know, this is about paving the way for a future generation of girls who deserve to be paid the same as their male counterparts in sports, in the workplace in general. And that's what this is about. I can't answer the question as to how this will affect the NWSL going forward, or how this will affect the women's national team, the women's national teams across the world. There was breaking news that came out a little bit ago about Colombia being in a wage dispute with their own federation and perhaps boycotting the friendly matches against the women's national team later on this year. This is a huge issue across the sport, across women's sports in general. So the fact that the US women's national team are doing this now is a huge deal, and it's perfect timing before the Olympics. I mean, we're talking about women's national teams potentially striking all over the place, demanding more, demanding equal pay. And frankly, I think that the men's national team players need to get their asses in gear and support the women. That's something that could potentially make their fans respect them a little bit more, considering the piss poor performances that they've been putting on lately, which is a really mean thing to say, but it's true. I feel like I would personally have a lot more respect for them if they made their opinions very public. Not looking at you, Lyndon Donovan, because your input so far has been awful, really bad. But yeah, I would respect them a lot more if they would support their women counterparts. If anything, it's going to make them look a lot better than they've been making themselves look with their performances. So yeah, that is my opinion piece. I'm super fired up. I hope that this goes places, and I hope that these women get themselves equal pay in my lifetime. They're doing it the right way, and they picked the best 5 people to write their names on that document. And I hope that US Soccer Federation listens to these players, listens to the fans, because the fans are all behind them. And this will be very interesting to see what happens going forward with other teams with the National Women's Soccer League. So yeah, that was my opinion piece. You guys definitely tweet me, leave messages on the video. I will respond as quickly as possible. But hope you guys enjoyed, and go US Women's National Team. Peace out.